Hey, White Sox fans, it's Brett Ballantini. I'm lucky enough to host Southside Sox on the Farm. It's a podcast devoted to the minor leagues. The guy who's usually with me, he's with me again. It's Darren Black. It's my best friend in the whole wide world, Darren Black. Welcome back, Darren.
Yeah, I mean, it's Monday. I'm here every night, besides like a couple, but.
Yeah, I got to say, all right, apologies in order. This is Southside Sox on the Farm podcast. I think it's number 13. And I think that means that there's been a skip in the Darren Black resume. And that's because number 12, we sort of squeezed in a little at long last, not Venus Victor, but Dan Victor. He gave us a little bit of a take on his draft review, talked a little Kannapolis. It was a fun talk. I hope we have that again with Dan, and maybe even one day all three of us will get together. But I think during that podcast, Darren, at some point, I think maybe I fired you. I don't know why. I think it was rash. It was rash. But you're not fired. I think I was just I don't know. I don't know what happened, but again, as long as I keep calling you on Mondays and you're there, you pick up.
No,
we're good.
I retired that day and came back the next or something. I don't know.
An excellent segue as we go through the system. We're going to start at the top with a little bit of an eye because that's sort of the theme of what you put together for the weekly MVP piece for the minor leagues, which is running along with this podcast. And the theme is with sort of an eye to the trade deadline, even though time is running short. And we're going to start in Charlotte, and we're going to talk about a guy who probably has managed to have no trade value now, and a guy who better have trade value because we're not sure what to do with him otherwise. Let's start with Yermín. You had sort of an interesting take on what you wrote, and I guess just give me a little reaction to what happened last week. I don't think any of us really understand it, but what was your take on Yermín Mercedes?
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I don't really know what happened. I mean, he didn't get a hit in his first two at-bats and then left the game and then said he was retired after. So I don't know if I'm pretty sure Wes Helms is the manager of Charlotte. I don't know if he had a tiff with him or if he's just mad about the whole situation of being back in Charlotte. But yeah, if he wanted to go play for another team, he basically tanked that this week because he's not. What team is going to want a 28-year-old catcher who may or may not be able to hit? Like, he had a fantastic month, and then he had an equally as bad month compared to that fantastic one with, I think it was like a 200 WRC plus, and then went all the way down to 18, like pretty polar opposite. And then also who can't really catch, but obviously he still has a good arm. Maybe if you could put him in the outfield, maybe you could work out something there, but he's not that quick. But now, like, why would I don't see why a team would want him or trust him, because if you're going to trade for him to be on your major league club and then he doesn't work out, or maybe he just has like a couple weeks stretch of a slump and then he has options and you send him down because he has options, and then you're going to expect him to stay around. Yeah, like he's in that zone of this is just kind of who he is. And I mean, the Sox are sending down pretty good hitters right now. Jake Berger just got sent down. He had been going through a bit of a slump, and maybe it's better that he's in Charlotte to play every day, but that's just where the Sox are. Like, when Luis Robert comes back, I don't know who they're going to send down. Right. Probably Gavin Sheets, but maybe Danny Mendick. I don't know. There's just there's a roster glut right now. Maybe that could fix itself after the deadline, but we'll find out next Monday.
I guess so. At this point, you think Yermín at best is a guy who, like, maybe a team, I don't want to say takes him off the White Sox hands, but sort of like he's not the main piece, but okay, as a guy who might fill out the seat, like almost an expiring contract guy where, all right, maybe we can plug him in at DH in an American League team, and what the heck, we're not playing like Texas. Yeah, we're not playing for anything. Let's throw him out there. But yeah, really, he's reduced it to like nothing.
Yeah, it's best for both parties. Probably if Yermín's playing for a different organization next year, it seems like anyway at this point. But he probably could have hastened the process a bit if he just kind of got through the next week or whatever he was kind of looking for with his retirement, if whatever we're going to call it. that he did on Monday.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder. I mean, he might really be on his own. I know he shoulders a lot of burden, like many players of his ilk, shoulders a big burden for his family. I don't know what sort of advice he gets. I know there's been a couple maybe family members who sort of defended him as this thing has been going on. But in terms of his counsel, even from teammates, you'd think that there could be counsel, and whether he's not listening to it, or maybe he's not asking for it, he's not getting it, because you would think that, I mean, this stuff isn't new. I mean, his situation is fairly unique in that he had this unbelievable. I mean, he's an outlier to a degree, but again, it's not unheard of. I mean, there have been these there have been phenoms, even older phenoms.
I mean, Whit Merrifield with the Royals right now, he came up pretty late. Obviously, a much different player, can do a bit more things, but like he took a long time to get there. And Yermín Mercedes has been a professional baseball player for a decade, I think, at least the early 2010s. But he just, I don't know. It's probably frustrating from going from like saving the team at an awful point when Eloy went down and everyone else was kind of not hitting, to then being the guy that couldn't hit, and then getting optioned for a better guy at various things. But he took advantage of injuries, and then another one happened, and then he went down. And then that's just baseball. I don't think he's 28. I wouldn't really want a 28-year-old that's just going to retire or whatever, like mentoring your guys coming up.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would be great, because he's also on the same team as Jake Berger, and what he's gone through with like 2 injuries, he could have had an actual reason to retire, because just too hard to come back from that. And then Berger did, and look what he did. And now he's back down, and I'm sure he'll be back up. It's just kind of where both of those guys are at. They're quadruple A guys.
Yeah.
That's what they are.
The other guy you acknowledged, who should be on the tip of Rakan's tongue in terms of trying to deal, a guy who has been long awaited to get to Charlotte. We were suspicious about the motivations of him not even getting to Charlotte. And then when he did, he basically has not missed a beat from his great season in Birmingham. He now has, I believe, a career professional high in homers, and that's Micker Adolfo. It's not about talking about what he's doing and how well he's mashing and him versus Yermín. It really is, he pretty much has to go somewhere. But Darren, what I want to ask you is if he doesn't, and it doesn't seem like there's a whole bunch of trades being juggled right now by Rakan, what are the White Sox left to do? Is he a guy who just would end up being outright, he would get his free agency? The White Sox pretty much have to put him on the active roster next year. Refresh me where they're at with Mike.
So this year is his last. So he's been on the 40-man for, this is the 3rd season. You get 3 options. They used that last option, that last year of option. When you do the cuts in spring training, you option people down. And so Micker was optioned. That was his 3rd one. So now he doesn't have any more options left for the next season. I don't know if the Rule 5 rules are kind of weird in my head, and I don't know if he would qualify for Rule 5, but basically what it comes down to is he has to be on the active 26-man roster come next year in order to be on the White Sox. Because if you option him again, it's actually a DFA. And if you DFA him, you can either trade him during like some like week or 10-day span, or he's just outrighted to Charlotte. I'm guessing a team would at least claim him if no one traded for him, if that were to happen in 2022. But it's probably much easier to trade him now, just because he's still in the minors. Right. Maybe Baltimore Orioles or Texas Rangers or whomever is doing poorly. Detroit Tigers, Kansas City Royals, there's a bunch of teams. They can kind of keep him in the minors then, and then actually keep him on the major league roster next year, because they don't really have good players. Right. Obviously, the Sox have too many outfielders or faux outfielders, whichever ones you want to call them. There's too many guys in his spot, so you got to find out where that is. Maybe that doesn't help his trade value right now, because every team obviously knows that he's kind of in a roster crunch right now, but he should be one of the top guys that would get dealt in any kind of scenario, because he's the most in limbo player of the top prospects they have. They don't have a lot of control left.
Yeah, realistically, as much as we love the story, as much as we love him being healthy and doing what we hoped to do maybe even a few years earlier, there's really no path to him remaining with the White Sox. Best case scenario is next year he goes crazy in spring training. He does somehow make the team because probably also of injury, because the team should, in theory, be loaded in the outfield already, and then somehow never pauses enough for him to ever be considered sent down, like basically a Luis Robert, in right field, which is not, I guess it's not impossible, but that the percentage, the likelihood of that's what, a couple percent. It's just not very realistic that punting this to next spring is going to have any different outcome. It would essentially be a Rule 5 pickup for another team by claiming him at DFA. They're going to have to keep him as well on their roster, but if they're claiming him, they're going to want him on their roster, and it is going to be a Pittsburgh or, I don't know, Kansas City or whoever. So the Sox are really not by necessarily any fault of their own. They just had to wait long enough for this guy to even become someone we're talking about. Oh no, we may lose him. But it just, the way the timings worked out with him, because they probably had to put him on the 40-man when they did, it's not looking great for him really ever getting to the south side.
No, he's just at an odd spot because Adam Engel is actually kind of good, and then the Eloy injury forced Andrew Vaughn out into left, and he's obviously, we know he's a good hitter, but he's pretty fine out there in left. So it's just it's a good problem to have. They have too many good players, or potentially good players. And I don't really remember the last time I've been able to say that for the Sox, but they've had so many players that they had to get rid of one that kind of looks good.
Yeah, and it hasn't helped the fact that some of these spontaneous pickups, deciding to claim or sign Billy Hamilton like early in spring training, has like sort of worked out, and Brian Goodwin has like sort of worked out. It hasn't really helped, either. Not saying Micker Adolfo would be in their spot, but that's one guy, one or two players would be out of the way. Or maybe if Andrew Vaughn doesn't work out in left, or if Gavin Sheets can't do it in right, or if Eloy Jimenez is out the whole year. I mean, he's back. That's another guy who's in Micker's way, and it is sort of a shame. Okay, Darren, let's go down to AA. We're going to work our way down, and next, the theme of these next couple, and we're going to bridge the break on this as well, are guys who are MVPs. And what I want to know, Taylor Varnell just got called up to Birmingham, sort of like, okay, it's about time. He's an older guy. I think he's 26. He's an older guy. He was done great at high A. His first start at Birmingham is what you would have hoped for, pretty much all you would have hoped for. He's an older guy. What I'm asking you is, at what point do we not say, well, he's an older guy, he's not a prospect? Obviously, if he keeps pitching great, at some point he ekes his way into the picture. How much does he have to do for him to go from a guy who's like, you roll your eyes on, like, well, yeah, okay, that's great, to, hey, maybe he could actually pitch for the White Sox?
Yeah, so I don't know if Dan Victor is not going to like me saying this, because I know he loves Taylor Varnell. But I am probably never going to be a guy that's going to be like, I think Taylor Varnell is going to be in a starting rotation, or even in a bullpen. Okay. He is older, and though he is older, and obviously we didn't have a season last year, so he hasn't take away that year like a normal person. But he was drafted relatively recently. He's got a mid-90s fastball. Just the thing that's the problem with him is that he doesn't really, like, his strikeout numbers, which is what I usually look at if I want to know a pitcher is doing really well, especially if one's older and playing in high A or double A, one of the kind of lower, not as many major league experienced baseball players or hitters in this scenario. And his are not that high. Now, he also relies a bit much on fly ball rate. Like in Winston-Salem, over 50% of the batted balls were in the air. That's not fantastic if you want to pitch in the majors in this day and age with the kind of swings they have and the power that, even like, look at Tim Anderson, like a shortstop hitting 20 home runs all the time is not something that's like been around in Major League Baseball. It's more of a relatively recent phenomenon. So it's just, I'm sure he's going to be one of those pitchers, or How about this? We'll compare him to Jake Peter. Like he just was always around, always was like, oh, look, he might actually be pretty good. And then you kind of find out, well, okay, now he gets to the majors or AAA for a bit longer. And now it's like, oh, okay. Well, that's why it took forever for him to get up there. Because if you look at Yermín, there was a clear reason why that he was taking so long. It was because of his defense. And we all knew that. And that's why it was taking forever for him to get up. For Varnell, he's doing awesome all the time, but he just doesn't have the stuff. And it's much harder for a pitcher to kind of be good at pitching against kind of not experienced ball players. And then going up to the majors or in AAA when you see these like Tim Beckhams of the world, Nick Williams of the world, right, and they actually know how to hit. And that's kind of when they fall apart. So if he gets to AAA next season and then just keeps doing the same things, then maybe I'll change my mind. But he is not really on my radar yet. Anything of consequence.
And chances are you're going to have to see something different in his stuff and actually what he's doing. It's not just him continuing where he's at. There's going to be some kind of uptick that says, okay, wait, I didn't expect it, but he's turning some kind of corner, or he's found another gear that he didn't indicate that he had.
Yeah. So take one of his new teammates, Konnor Pilkington. So 2 years ago, he kind of just had, I don't want to say it was an awful season, but it was really underwhelming, especially coming off his drafted year. And he was actually pitching well in Kannapolis beforehand, but then he got to Winston-Salem and just kind of was not great. The strikeouts are up, walks are down a bit, kind of normal. But what we're hearing from how he's pitching in Birmingham is that his fastball is actually up a tick or two. So if Taylor Varnell is, I think he's in low mid 90s right now. If that goes up, even just 1.5 on average, that means he's actually improving, putting in work, finding out new stuff. Because like he obviously wasn't like highly regarded coming out of college either. Unlike Konnor Pilkington, who will get any amount of leash, even if he's not doing so hot. It's just two different scenarios, and he's not a lefty, so that always hurts people if they're not a lefty. That's why Konnor Pilkington is usually in the back of everybody's mind, even if he's not doing so well. Unlike this year, where he's actually doing decent.
All right, we are going to have to break now because I got to feel this angry call from Dan Victor. I'm going to deal with that, and we're going to be back with the lower portion of our program, beginning with the Winston-Salem Dash. In just a moment, we will be right back in about a minute. And hey, we're back. It turned out to be a wrong number. Dan wasn't angry at all. Or maybe he was typing furiously, and he said, okay, I'm sending probably Darren Black a message about Taylor Varnell. How dare you? Okay, let's continue a theme, Darren, as we move into single A. And Luis Curbelo is our MVP. He started out really hot, sort of cooled. Seems like he's heating up again. This is a guy who ended up in 2019. He was demoted, I believe, to Great Falls. He really struggled. He seems like, at least hitting wise, he's turned the corner a little bit. Again, sort of same question here, although obviously different situation, different age than Taylor Varnell. But what does Luis Curbelo have to show you at what he can do right now at high A to get him a little bit more on the prospect map in your mind, or is that a lost cause?
I do not think Curbelo is a lost cause just because of how much power he has. Like we were always waiting for the power. Well, I say always, like he's been around forever. He has not been around forever. But we've been waiting for the power to kind of show more often. And though he is a bit older for the high A level, he's actually really showing it. And he's been showing it throughout the season. Like whenever he still kind of struggles, right. That's because he's not really just getting the singles or the doubles that we're also looking for too. I think his OBP is actually under 30%, which isn't fantastic. But Javi Baez is kind of that type of player who relies a ton on power to help his offensive numbers, and then kind of is not so great at everything else. Like Curbelo strikes out over 30% of the time. He also doesn't walk that often. I mean, if he fixes that a bit, like even if he gets his walk rate, it's about 5-ish right now. If he gets it up to 7-8, I'm not expecting that. But if he did that, that'd be fantastic. And maybe cut down the strikeouts the same percentage-wise, maybe 3, get down to the high 20s. Then you could kind of see him take off. but the power is what we've really been missing from him. And now he's actually showing it like consistently and not just 3 weeks. Oh, I'm actually hitting the ball well. And then maybe he doesn't really do anything for another month. He's actually kind of hitting home runs all the time. He's got 15 right now, 3 of which came last week. But he's really turning in on the ball more often. He's pulling about 60% of those batted balls, which is where the power is coming from. So he's actually getting his hips around things. So that shows me that he's a different ball player than he was in 2019. That doesn't mean he's going to be in the majors anytime soon, but that just means that he's actually improving. And so the cuts probably are coming soon from the 2021 draft class. If he was still playing like he was in 2019, he'd probably be one of those cuts. Now he's definitely not going to be one of those cuts.
Let me turn that around then and say, with some of these guys beginning to flood the system, there's going to be a bit of a wave. As you say, there's going to just be some outright cuts, but there presumably would be some promotion. Do the White Sox, given the circumstance where he needed to be pushed back before, would he be under consideration at all in getting to Birmingham the latter part of this year?
Yeah, he should definitely probably get to Birmingham at some point, because that's kind of where the power kind of stops. And it'd be great to see him in an area that I mean, Winston-Salem's not like Charlotte where everything just goes off the bat, even if they're like blue fly balls, will become homers sometimes. But he's just kind of like the Yolbert Sanchez. You just want to see him go against better pitching. And Yolbert did pretty well last week. Yeah. And I want to see Luis Curbelo kind of do the same thing. Because take Gavin Sheets, when he went up from Winston-Salem to Birmingham, the power went down, but he just kept getting doubles. And I just kind of want to see Luis Curbelo. Like, sure, like maybe his 275 ISO goes down to 216, but if I don't know the amount of doubles he has, but let's say he just has 10 doubles, 15 homers. If that flip-flops to 15 doubles, 10 homers, just because of the ballpark, then that's completely fine.
Right.
But whenever you can kind of get him in a more age-appropriate league, that'd be good too.
And plus, this is the year to be hitting in Birmingham, because apparently nobody on the Barons has gotten the memo that you're not supposed to hit there, because they're the one
2019 MLB ball.
They're just mashing the hell out of the ball. So this is the year you want to get to Birmingham. Okay, what will be a great win for Luis when he does get pushed up to Birmingham will be probably a loss for our beloved photographer, Tiffany Wins at Kannapolis, who I believe is by far her favorite player to photograph, but I'm sure she's going to be excited to see him move up the system when the time comes. Okay, let's go Luis to Luis. Let's talk about a guy who sort of went through this year to a degree what Curbelo did in 2019 and getting a demotion. Granted, Luis Miaci had a very, or a somewhat aggressive assignment to high A. He got pushed down to low A, and pretty much from that moment, something flipped and he's gone bananas. He's hitting really almost on the level of Jose Rodriguez, which is no poor company, and Brian Ramos, not bad company there with the Cannonballers. What's he done? And again, do the White Sox risk pushing him back up, and maybe risk the same struggles? Has he earned his way back up to high A? But what's he done to correct himself at Kannapolis?
Yeah, so I'm sure we'll talk about more of this later with the draft picks and where they might be placed, because that is a mystery to me with one less rookie team.
Right.
But so what Miaci has done, obviously the pitching is not as good, but Miaci has never had any really good stints hitting yet. He's always been kind of like the older type of White Sox prospect where there's like, oh, tools.
Right.
Let's see if we can put it together. And they usually didn't. But here's Luis Miaci finally trying to put something together. So in Winston-Salem, his strikeout rate just kind of ballooned up. Obviously, coming from no season, and it seems like a ton of younger players just really struggled out of the gate. Some of them corrected the ships. Some of them have not, unfortunately, for this trade deadline. But his walk rate, he's not a guy that's going to walk a ton, but it has gone up. But what has gone straight back down to what would be a career best is the strikeout rate. It's gone down at least 11%. And that when something happens like that, whether it goes down or up that much, it's sure some of it is because of the talent that he's facing. But you can say that it accounts for half of that. That still means that he's actually seeing the ball much better the other half instead of anything else that he's doing. He's also just hitting the ball better. Like he's pulling the ball a bit more. He's actually hitting it out a bit more. The power is kind of showing. And even these past 2 weeks, he has the same amount of walks as he does strikeouts, which I should have looked this up before, but I don't even think he's ever done that before. Just had the same amount at both pretty healthy rates. It's not like it's just one walk and one strikeout. Well, one strikeout over 2 weeks would be pretty impressive, but the one walk would not be. But yeah, he's doing much better than Benjamin Bailey, who also got sent down.
Wow.
So it doesn't always work out like that. Once you get sent down, even Luis Curbelo, I don't even think he actually did better when he got sent down. Kind of demoralized him. But he took it and ran with it, Luis Miaci, and now he's looking like he's putting some tools together.
A relatively small sample. That's all we got to work with. We can only work with what's in front of us.
Yeah.
You know that better than anybody, Darren. But is this enough, given that this isn't just his response to the demotion, but really, as you're saying, some of the first time you've seen him put together, sort of combine tools with actual production? Is this enough for you to think, okay, again, with sort of like a caveat, but all right, I think this, this guy can be on a climb. This guy can be on a move because of how he's corrected himself. I guess you need that confirmation, at least him getting to Winston-Salem and doing better, but at least this gives you the optimism to say, okay, maybe the light's gone on.
Yeah, so I don't know how this organizational roster crunch is going to work at all, but any of the other outfielders in Kannapolis right now, I don't think should be called up whatsoever. Chase Krogman is probably the next best one, but he has this problem where he will go through 2 weeks and have, say, like 13 at-bats and strike out in 10 of them. And like maybe the other 3 at-bats, they're 3 homers. Like that's just kind of what's happening right now with him. Miaci is actually taking improvements from whatever he learned in his terrible time in Winston-Salem and just kind of going through everything he is in Kannapolis and actually improving on what he did. No one in the ACL probably deserves the promotion either, but you can kind of fiddle with that and kind of see where people need to go with your new college draftees. So it's going to be weird without great balls. And I don't know, like for the high school guys, do they even play this year? Do they just kind of keep them in the backfield? Like I have no idea. I don't know with this new MILB what they're going to do. But there are a few people in Kannapolis I wish do get promoted. Jose Rodriguez obviously being one, and Miaci would definitely be another guy I hope gets a chance to prove it again in Winston-Salem.
All right. Before we talk a little bit about the 2021 draft class, hopefully this won't be too wordy an intro, but 2 thoughts here. And one you've acknowledged in some of your writing in the past week, and even in this weekly update where there's a little bit of wry commentary about the fact that really the White Sox had the potential to have a number of trade chips show up well enough in the minor league season to actually make this trade deadline a little bit more exciting than it may turn out to be. But that hasn't happened. Very few guys and maybe really only 1 or 2 have shown enough. And those guys, you might say, oh God, don't trade them because they're the only guy on the team doing well. Don't trade Jose. But then combine this with something I threw out earlier to everybody, and that was the, for what it's worth, who cares? But the betting odds on where players in the majors will end up in terms of, just what people think. And the White Sox registered with none of the 7 most significant names. Now, some of them, the White Sox wouldn't be in the bidding for anyhow, but not all of them. Is this an indication, these 2 factors, the fact that the White Sox, well, really what I'm asking is, the White Sox just don't really have chips to make a significant deal, even as much as you might raise an eyebrow at that return San Diego sent off to Pittsburgh to get Adam Frazier. Even that might be a big ask from this White Sox system. Even if you tried to gut it, it might still not be able to get you some of these guys that are being talked about moving. So again, I've probably asked it, we've discussed it many different times on many different podcasts, but the expectation level of the White Sox fans, as much as we all want to roll our eyes and say, oh, well, he talked big and then nothing happened. You do have to have something in the pantry, and there's there wasn't a lot if everything went as well as possible. And now there really isn't. There's like a can of Jose Rodriguez. Wow. That might even be it. So do we have to temper any expectation? Because there's just nothing to deal to these teams who are going to be looking in almost every case for young talent, probably even some prep talent, to sort of re-energize their system.
Yeah, I have seen some updates that Andrew Chafin from the Cubs have been traded, so I would love to see what kind of haul that got to kind of get the reliever market. But when I see on the Southside Sox comments like, yeah, like let's just trade Jake Burger for Craig Kimbrell, like that's where I'm like, okay, we need to pump the brakes on some things. Craig Kimbrell has a 0.5 ERA, and Jake Burger is fine and stuff, but he's an older prospect and all that, and people usually want younger ones that aren't on the 40-man yet, so they can kind of keep their rebuild going. And then when you look at how the White Sox have kind of done their drafting and international signing lately, like their international signings, Yolbert Sanchez, Cespedes is this year, Nogueira is this year, but they're all older international guys. Yolbert Sanchez is kind of a severe example of an older international guy, but he had more experience coming in. And then why a lot of people are more excited about this MLB draft class is because they actually went out and got prep players, like good prep players that with first, second, and then their fifth round pick that they gave all went over pool with. So you just kind of have to keep in mind that they haven't really been drafting and signing international guys that would kind of make it a wave of young guys coming up at the same time. They started doing that last year with Jared Kelly, but Jared Kelly also has not been doing well this year. You have Matthew Thompson and Andrew Dalquist, kind of the same ilk, but they also have not done super well this year. So there's just a confluence of events of them not having the youngest farm system, and then also all their guys in Kannapolis really haven't been doing well. Though Matthew Thompson and Dalquist did better this past week, it's just there's a lot of things going on that they don't really have the best system for right now.
Hey,
and of course, all the good ones are in MLB.
Hey, Alec Hansen had a nice appearance after he had a 6-week break. So man, everything's looking up. Okay, Darren, this is just too simple take. I'm a simple man. I'm a sledgehammer guy, and that probably doesn't benefit clever analysts like yourself. But okay, tell me this then. You want to have guys, right? You want to have players. You want to have chips, both to help your team. And on that note, the White Sox have hit a real sweet spot because they've got, at least as of whatever, a month ago or a few weeks ago, like the most number one picks of their own on the major league roster, whatever. Okay, and that's great, no doubt about it. That's what you want. But when it comes to this idea of like, wow, some trade chips and that, don't you want more players? Why is DSL KC1 playing DSL KC2 in the Dominican Republic, and the White Sox are sitting around with one team in Arizona? And I know that's just not a solution. Hey, more, and you're still subject to limitations. Like you can't just automatically sign twice the number of international players at big money, the top guys, just because you have more teams. I get that there's still some limitations, but isn't it? The more fields you're playing on, doesn't it just stand to reason you're going to find more guys, and that gives you more collateral to work with?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if having an extra DSL team would do anything, but I think definitely having another Arizona Complex League team would do something. Because you can make an argument. Obviously, you don't want rookies to go to Montana and like hate baseball because they're playing in Montana or whatever.
Because it's snowing on August 1st.
Yeah, so they still keep people in Arizona. Now maybe it's 115 degrees there, and some people don't like that, but it's just kind of, they should have 2, or I guess technically 3 rookie teams with the DSL. Obviously, DSL is a great environment for the international guys to kind of get their step in to the American professional baseball system as they kind of hang out with people that speak their language. And all that while they try to get into whatever the Sox want them to get into. And then they go to the Arizona Complex League and start learning how to do all the things over in America that they weren't probably doing in the Dominican Summer League, but it's just kind of what I hope they're going to start doing now is they didn't sign like too many older guys this past international bonus pool, because it was also weird because of the pandemic, so it was a bit later.
Yeah.
But I'm really hoping that this MLB draft class is kind of the start of them getting just a lot of younger guys into the system, so then they can have that Dodgers feel or that Padres feel or the Tampa Bay Rays feel of just someone's always there, and maybe you get lucky with Wander Franco, who looks amazing. And then, or you get lucky with other guys like Julio Urias, who just came out of nowhere and was just awesome. It's just, they just need to keep going through this, and it changed recently. So it can't change just overnight. It's going to be a while before they actually have the steady growth in the system. But I'm hoping it's starting now, because if it's not, and they just kind of go back to, like, if they just take a bunch of older college guys next year, because they're like, okay, we got to win now. And I know Jerry Reinsdorf still plays a part in this, and he's really wants to win another title. And so maybe that can happen, but I just hope they take prep guys for the next 5 years in the first round, and then you'll just keep having this wave of really young guys coming up. Maybe not at the same time like what just happened right now with Robert Moncada, Giolito, all those guys, but just have steady stream of just fantastic young guys all at once.
Well, first,
I know the international market might change too, because there might be a draft. The CBA might change everything, and this conversation won't matter anymore. But it's just a lot of things, and just hopefully this is the start.
Well, first, Sean Williams will tell you it's a dry heat, Darren. So it's dry heat, so it's all right. And there's more than one sandwich shop in the entire greater Phoenix area, so that's probably a good thing too. But one thing we're overlooking here, and even I'm overlooking when I'm just like more teams, and it needs to be pointed out that even before this contraction, there were teams with 2 DSL. There were franchises with 2 DSL
and 2 ACLs.
2 AC. So
ACLs.
ACLs. But the missing piece of the puzzle is, of course, to be like the Dodgers and the Rays, you have to have people smart like the Dodgers and the Rays. And it's no diss on the White Sox. Again, look at the team. These are a lot of homegrown guys, and the teams are in first place in the Central and having a great year. So no diss here. However, they're not there yet. And they haven't. I think what's worrisome, and probably more worrisome for you, a guy whose bread and butter is sort of this minor study, and a clown like me just sits back, wants to clap for the major league team and look at the fireworks. It doesn't matter as much, but they haven't necessarily even demonstrated, other than maybe this draft says a little something, an inclination to want to be that. It certainly, I think, would help by saying, hey, we're going to have 40 guys playing games in Arizona instead of 25, and like a bunch of guys working out on backfields. But yeah, I guess we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Sorry for that tangent, but thought it probably was smart to talk a little bit trade deadline, because this is probably the last time we're going to be talking on the farm, at least for a podcast before the trade deadline. So let's talk quickly before we wind this up. And I'm just curious to know, I guess there's some obvious answers, because the top guys, and certainly the 3 preps, and it was really terrific that they got McDougal in the fold. That seemed to be the one guy who thought, ooh, maybe not. He had a strong commitment to from a great college program, and you just wondered if the White Sox were going to give him the money to wrench him away from that, and they did. Well done. But curious to know, of the 20 guys, I think another 5 maybe undrafted free agents now, who's jumping out at you that you're most interested in seeing? Who maybe you realistically could see? I know there's some guys who are probably going to just sort of get sandbagged and just hidden in Arizona for the year, but a guy you might realistically see in Arizona or even Kannapolis this year, who's jumped out at you as most intriguing?
So first off, I do want to say happy they didn't sign anybody to $1,000 bonus after last week's conversation. That's pretty great. Didn't really want to deal with that with my team, but it might be different for the first round pick and the second rounder. Both high schoolers, they might come in the ACL and actually play a decent amount, but I'm just gonna pretend that they aren't gonna play this often with like maybe 27, 30 games or whatever they have left, because the draft is a bit late. So I'm going to go with the first college guy they picked. They gave him $300,000 ish over the bonus, Sean Burke. The main reason is he's 6'6", 230, so that would look awesome on the mound. I think that'd be very scary, and I wouldn't want to be in the batter's box against him, which I hope is the case for everybody else that's actually playing. But he's got a plus fastball. It's mid 90s right now, and you just kind of hope and assume that it goes up once he's in a major league program, strength program, off-season program, all these programs to make your pitches better. And he's also already got like plus breaking stuff. I know in college his kind of downside, maybe why he slid to the third round, even though MLB Pipeline gave him a top 100 prospect or draft prospect, was the command. But if I have noticed anything from paying attention to the minor league system this year with the really young guys, they all struggled with command, even if they were pretty good with it coming into this season. I'm probably because of the pandemic, probably because of not pitching all the time for a year and a half, something like that. So I'm just going to hope that the Sox just kind of figure that out pretty quickly. But he is a college guy. I don't think he took all of his eligibility. Which maybe was another reason why he kept falling, because some people didn't want to pay him $900,000 or around there for his bonus. But that's kind of the guy that I'm most looking forward to and most expecting that he's actually going to be pitching out there. I'm not sure if anybody is going to get to Kannapolis. Maybe these like $10,000 bonus relievers that they've got, I can't remember his name, but they're the guy out of TCU, the last round pick. I'm sure Brett knows it, but it's
Halen, right? I think it's Halen.
Yeah, Halen Green.
There you go. My buddy, my guy.
Yeah, your guy. He could be a guy that I could see in Kannapolis and push out maybe an older reliever in Kannapolis that probably shouldn't be playing professional baseball any longer. But for the top guys, Sean Burke definitely, and then obviously the high schoolers if they actually play. That'd be fantastic.
Speaking of $1,000 bonuses, and good Lord, can you believe a guy who was a 5th or 6th round pick like the Northsiders did and gave him $1,000 bonus?
Yeah.
God, man, it's like a punch in the Adam's apple. That's just nasty. Sorry. I mean, I call the Ivy Bumblers out on a lot, and probably some of it isn't fair, but that one is fair. That's nasty.
I mean, the governor of Nebraska, that must not be a great salary or something.
Yeah, it must not be. Good Lord. But on that note, and, I struggle with committing too much attention to this because, after all, we want to get paid for our work. We're underpaid here. And I know nobody wants to hear that either. So sorry to make you listen to the podcast after you had to listen to a 1-minute ad in the middle of it. But we are trying to do a little bit more with adoptaminorleaguer.com. They've sort of reached out to us. I think we've had some success in shoveling some attention to them. Apparently, an inordinate number of White Sox players are signing up to be sponsored through that site. So whether that has to do with us or not, or maybe it's just the meals are really bad with the White Sox, I'm not sure. But there has been a lot of, they've sort of overwhelmed the system. So it's something I'm trying to put a little blurb at the end of some of our updates. It's something I'm shouting out here. It's something to check out if you're interested in reaching out and trying to help some of these guys who really aren't making obviously a livable wage. Is that any of our problems? No, I guess it isn't. I'm not making a livable wage either. Darren, well, you're juggling 6-7 jobs, so hopefully one of them is.
Wages are funny things. Like they say it right in the name, living wages.
And then you go, man, this is hard to live. But particularly
those wages help you live.
Yes, and these guys, obviously, I mean, you've read all the stories, you've heard all the news, and whether you move by it or not, and if this isn't probably going to move you if you're not moved by it already. But if it is possible to shove a little their way, or at least give them some attention, maybe, I don't know, retweet something, or just pay a little attention to their site. And don't be annoyed that we might be noting them a little bit more often, because they're doing good work, and they've been doing it for, I think, at least a year now through the pandemic, loss of season and so forth. So that's something for people to check out as well. And yes, I too am proud that I don't think the White Sox necessarily went under 10 grand. They might have gone a little
10
lower.
was the lowest.
which isn't great, but it's 5 figures for being a professional major league player, you'd think.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
I mean, I don't know if we were
They don't
talking
have another choice of employment that's going to give them that much money that quickly. So they just take it.
Yeah, living the dream of eating burritos every night if they're lucky. If it's not dollar menu. Okay, I guess that wraps things up. We will be back probably in a week talking about, I guess, maybe who the system lost, whether because of cuts from the draft guys or maybe a trade. I'm not holding my breath, but it's possible. But we will probably acknowledge some of that. And then, of course, who's doing well in the system and maybe who isn't. We'll do it again in a week. I'll call. If you pick up, we'll do it, huh?
Yeah, Monday night, I'll probably be here.
Okay. Well, it's a Monday night. You all you listeners and a few of you viewers and some of you readers get to share every week with us. And we appreciate that you do. Thank you, as always, for listening, reading, sometimes even watching. Darren, thanks for hopping on again. We will go back to the farm, whether you're hatted or hatless. We'll go back to the farm starting next week. You game?
Yep, I'm down.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We will be back with you in a week.